Did you know that for me one of the most fascinating areas in Florence is actually the area of the river, the Arno river, and the area of the bridges that connect the both sides of the city. And this is because Florence, as we know it today, would never exist without the Arno river. In fact, the direct access to water was absolutely necessary to develop here in the Middle Ages the profitable textile industry. The textile industry actually allowed the great economical development of medieval Florence and made possible the construction of all the amazing monuments that we admire in the town today, such as the cathedral and the town hall. The city started to grow during the 12th and the 13th centuries, and it actually started developing on the other side of the river, where the Oltrarno neighborhood is located today. And this is the reason why, starting from the 13th century, the city started investing in the construction of more bridges that would connect the town with its southern part. The history of the bridges of Florence actually reveals some of the most important elements of the history of the city. The bridges tell the story of trade, wood production, but it also reminds us about many floods that the people of Florence had to face. Bridges are also related to the Medici family. Let's discover together the fascinating story of the Florentine bridges. Today, the two banks of the Arno River are connected with 11 different bridges. Some of them are very modern and built during the 20th century, like the Ponte all'Indiano, but 6 of those 11 bridges actually connect the both sides of the Arno River in the historical center of Florence. And these are Ponte Vespucci, Ponte alla Carraia, Ponte Santa Trinità, Ponte Vecchio, Ponte alle Grazie, and Ponte San Nicolò. Let me guide you through the fascinating stories whispered by the bridges of Florence. Ponte alla Carraia used to be called the Ponte Nuovo, the new bridge, or Ponte alle Carra, so the bridge of the carriages. Its first wooden construction was built during the 13th century, and in fact it was used by the many carriages transporting the bales of wool across the city. The Florentine bridges had one main enemy, and these were the floods. And so this 13th century bridge actually was damaged and had to be rebuilt after the flood of 1269. Another wooden bridge rebuilt in this place collapsed in 1304 in a rather curious circumstances because of the weight of a great crowd of Florentine people who gathered on the bridge to watch a performance on the river. At this point, the city decided to invest in a stone bridge, and they hoped that it would be more resistant. But again, another flood in 1333 destroyed this newly built bridge again. The 14th century construction stood in place until the next flood of 1557. And then, just like Ponte Santa Trinita, this bridge had to be modernized and rebuilt according to the project of a brilliant Renaissance architect, Bartolomeo Ammanati, who worked in the service of the Duke of Florence, Cosimo I. The bridge was enlarged during the 19th century, but it was unfortunately completely destroyed by the Nazi Germans in the night of August 3. In 1944. This is a very painful part of the history of Florence, when the Germans, evacuating from the city, decided to destroy all of the bridges, leaving only Ponte Vecchio standing, in order to slow down the progress of the Allied army arriving from the south. After the war, the bridge was rebuilt and reopened in 1951. Ponte Santa Trinita is, together with the Ponte Vecchio, one of the most beautiful bridges of Florence. Just like the history of Ponte alla Carraia, also Ponte Santa Trinita had a long and complicated, at times dramatic story. The first bridge in that spot was built in 1251, thanks to the Frescobaldi family, who owned a palace just across the river in the Oltrarno neighborhood and decided to connect that palace with the center of the town. And just like Ponte alla Carraia, Also, this early built bridge did not resist the many floods that inundated Florence: 1296, 1333 and 1557. After this last flood, the Duke of Florence, Cosimo I, commissioned his court architect Bartolomeo Ammanati for a project with the idea to rebuild the bridge. Ammanati's design conquered the hearts of the people of Florence. The bridge is really unique. The elliptical arches decorated with the big marble tiles became an iconic element of the Florentine cityscape. The Ponte Santa Trinita was also an important protagonist of the wedding celebrations in the Medici family. In 1608, the newly married Cosimo II walked through the bridge with his spouse Maria Magdalena of Austria, and on this occasion the bridge was decorated with the statues of the four seasons: winter, summer, spring and autumn, placed on the both ends of the bridge. The beauty and the historical importance of Ponte Santa Trinita did not preserve it from the destruction of August 3, 1944. The bridge was blew up by the German troops and it had to be rebuilt after the war. In this case, the city of Florence decided to promote a project to rebuild it how it was and where it was. And the bridge was inaugurated again in 1958. We are so happy to have the Renaissance Ponte Santa Trinita again accessible to us. Ponte Vecchio is today the oldest bridge of Florence, but only because it's the only one that survived World War II. Already during the Roman times, there was a wooden bridge that stood more or less in the same place of today's Ponte Vecchio. The unique construction with the many shops that you can admire in the town today was built during the 1340s as a reconstruction of a previous bridge destroyed by the flood in 1333. This medieval bridge was used as a market bridge, and in particular the many shops on the bridge were given to the butchers and the fish sellers who had their shops there. The decision to locate a meat market on the bridge depended on the worry for the sanitary security in town. The butchers, being located over the river, could simply throw all the remaining stinky parts of the unsold meat directly to the river, and there was no need of other cleaning system in town. The story of the bridge started to evolve when in 1565 the Medici family built above the shops on the bridge the Vasari corridor, and the unique private passage that connected the office buildings, today Uffizi Gallery, with the private residence at the Pitti Palace. Then they started being bothered by the smell of the meat below their feet, and during the 1590s the shops on the bridge were actually given in the hands of the goldsmiths. This is why today Ponte Vecchio is the most sparkling bridge of Florence. In August 1944, the Germans evacuating from Florence decided to destroy the Florentine bridges, but they preserved the Ponte Vecchio. In order to isolate the bridge from the town, they actually destroyed all the streets leading to Ponte Vecchio and then mined the bridge, evacuating and escaping to the north. This is why Ponte Vecchio today is actually the oldest bridge in town. On the east of Ponte Vecchio stands Ponte alle Grazie. In 1237, the Podestà of Florence, Rubaconte da Madello, ordered a construction of a new bridge in the city that connected the Santa Croce neighborhood with the Oltre Arno. The Ponte Rubaconte survived the many floods that harmed other Florentine bridges, like the one in 1333 and the one in 1557. During the centuries, the bridge started hosting little structures like houses, chapels, dormitories, similar to the ones that are still visible on Ponte Vecchio. The most famous of these chapels was built during the 14th century, and it was dedicated to Santa Maria delle Grazie, Our Lady of Grace. And this is why from the 19th century onwards, the Florentine people started calling this bridge Ponte alle Grazie. During the early 15th century, the bridge hosted also the cells of the cloistered nuns, called le murate, those walled up, because they really lived walled up in the small houses on the bridge. In 1424, the nuns were moved to the nunnery in Via Ghibellina, called Le Murate, where today there is a very interesting art center, Murate Art District. The numerous houses on the bridge were actually demolished in 1876, just to make more space for road crossing the bridge. Unfortunately, this very beautiful and very old bridge was also destroyed in 1944, and it did not survive the war. Also, this bridge was rebuilt after the war, and today it's decorated by a unique and joyful statue of a common man placed there by the Florentine street artist Clet Abraham. The common man makes a bold step into the void space, representing the positive energy, trust and joy of who believes in a positive outcome of his projects and dreams. And so, as you could see, the oldest and the most famous bridge of Florence is in the Florentine Ponte Vecchio, the bridge with so many jewelry shops and with such a long and interesting history. Another iconic bridge is Ponte Santa Trinità. Definitely the pictures of those two bridges are part of the most known and widely spread images of the center of Florence. However, the story of the Arno River really reveals many interesting aspects of the Florentine history, and so if you are curious to learn more about it, you can always book a boat tour on the Arno River. Contact me to organize this custom experience in Florence and fall in love with the Arno and the bridges.